Hi, my name's Mickey Ferrucciaro, and this is the video class that goes along with my tutorial for my BabyStar. The BabyStar tutorial has a variety of stars, some little puffy stars, some layered stars, stacked stars, and it culminates with a stacked star ornament. So lots to cover in this tutorial, and we will get started. Here we are ready to start our basic BabyStar. The first thing we're going to do is string our 8mm pearl. This is what we're going to work around. And then we're going to string 9 of our delica beads. 3, 6, one more. And then we're going to basically go back through the pearl so that we're creating a loop around. As we pull this in, you can see we've got the beads at one side, and then we're going to do the same thing for the other side. 9 more beads. 6, 9, and we're going to come back through again so that we're looping around the pearl, and that's what you're going to look like. Basically, we've done a figure 8 through the pearl. Now we're going to go through the first set of beads. All the way through that first set of 9. And then we're going to add one more into this gap. We're going to fill this gap up. So we're going to add 1, and we're going to go through the second set of 9. Now we're going to add another bead to fill in this gap here, but we're not going to go through the full set. We're just going to go through the first bead of that set of 9. So now our pearl is fully encased. And now all you're going to do is work a row in peyote stitch. So this is basically row 3. When we string beads for peyote stitch, we're stringing the beads for row 1 and row 2. So row 3, just a row of peyote all the way around. Okay. One more. And we're going to step up. So now we've got a little strand of 3 rows all around our pearl. We're going to work one more row, and then in our delicas, and then we're going to work a row in a little 15 bead. That's going to close this bezel up onto our beads really nice and tight. Okay, so here we go. One row in using the delicas, and then we'll do one row with our 15s. So you're going to have a total, by the time we're going to match this on the other side, we'll have a total of 7 rows around our pearl. Make sure that your tail thread is free. We're going to use that for the other side. So this is why I say a long working length of thread for a tail. Just makes life a lot easier when you've got a thread already added. Okay, and here we are all the way around and stepping up. And now we're going to work that row of 15s. My tail thread out of the way. It's fiddly because there's not a lot to hold on to, so it's a fiddly thing to work and to show on camera at the same time. But you get the idea. So you can see how this is curving in. Okay. Now on the other side, I'm going to thread my tail thread up to a needle, and I'm going to work one row of delicas on the other side and one row of 15s. So we'll have a center of 5 rows of the purple delicas, and then we'll have a row each side of silver 15s. I'll come back and show you that. So here is our little bezeled pearl. You can see it's quite nice and firm now, so we can start working into it. On those silver rows, when you're working those 15s, when you've worked that row, do not step up. You want to be coming out of the purple delica. Okay, so now we're going to start our increase row. We're going to start by adding 2 beads into the next stitch. So we're working into that last purple row. I'm going to go 2 in that stitch, 1 in the next. We're just going to alternate that all the way around. Make sure they lay correctly. There we go. And if you've got your number of beads correct, you should have 5 double beads and 5 single beads. And when you step up, at the end of this row, you're going to go through the first bead of the first pair. Okay, and this is what we've got. Now it's some simple geometric beadwork for a couple of rows. We're going to go 2 beads into our 2 beads. So as you come out of the first bead, you add 2 beads, go through the second of the pair. And then we've got 2 beads, 1 stitch, and the next bead we go up through the first of the next pair. So we're at another point. So we're adding 2 in, going through the second of that pair. Make sure they sit correctly. And 1 into the next bead. Then 1 into the first of the next pair. Two beads, go through the second bead of that pair. Add a bead. And another one going through the first of the next pair. Two in the next, through the second of that pair, the next point. And 1, one through the first bead of the next point, 2 beads into that point through the second bead of the pair, one more bead, and this is our one bead in first. I'm a bit early there. Okay. So one bead, and then our last bead, and we're going to go up. Be sure that you do the step up on this, because I know it's easy to miss, but you need to be going up through both of those beads in that point. Okay, so there we are. And we have basically 2 more rows like this. So you will end up, how you've got 2 beads in between right now, in between the points, you're going to have 4 beads in between the points. So the next row you'll have 3, then the row after that you'll have 4. And I'll come back and show you what we do from there, because we're going to be decreasing. Okay, so here we are after finishing row 4, and you can see that the star is beginning to warp. And that's what would happen if you continued adding and not doing any decreasing. You would end up with a warped star. It would be all over the place, and not what we want for this design. So for row 5, we're going to do a decrease. So we're still increasing in the point every round. Then we're going to work 1 bead. And then when you add your next stitch, you're going to go through 2 beads. So you're going to skip that center stitch. And if you just ease your beads up, it's easier to get through those 2 beads in the center. And that's exactly what we want it to do. We're going to add a little puff into the star. That's what these decreases will create. Okay, so you've got 2 beads and a skip stitch. So then we're going to work 2 beads, and we're now up to the point. So we're just going to keep repeating this around. 2 beads in the point, 1 stitch, 2 stitch. Make sure our beads are pointed up so we can get through easily enough. Through those center 2 beads, skipping our stitch, and then 2 beads to the point, two beads in the point, then 1 bead, 2 bead, push our beads up, go through those center 2 beads for our skip stitch, and 2 beads to the point. Two beads in the point, 1, 2 stitches, just make sure our curve is there, through those 2 beads, 2 center beads for a skip stitch, 1, 2, this is our last point, 2 beads in the point, there's 1, there's 2 up through our center 2 beads, make sure they sit up, and 1, and the second one with our step up. So we're going to make sure that we go through both beads. Do not skip that or you'll be in trouble. You'll have a bead missing then and you won't know where it went. Okay, now you can kind of see that if we point these centers up, we can just about make our star start to look flat. It's a little tricky at this point, but we're going to get that guy so he's a bit flatter. Yeah, we're getting there. Okay, so the next row, this decrease stitch that we're doing in the middle of the row here, it takes 3 rows to kind of complete. So you've got your row where you skip a stitch, and then on the next row you're going to add 1 bead over your skip stitch. Okay, so that's a decrease of a bead right there. And then we're going to just work our 2 stitches into our point. Two beads in the point, always 2 beads in the point. And 1, 2, 1 bead over our skip. Two beads to the point. Two beads in the point. 1, 2. 1 bead over our skip stitch. Two beads to the point. Two beads in the point. See, it's nice and easy, and you can see that the stars already starting to flatten out with that decrease going in. You'd have to do the same thing, you know, if you wanted to make a square flat. You'd use this kind of technique. One bead in over our skip stitch. One, 2 to the point. This is our last point. And just so you can see this, here we go. 1, 2, our third bead over our skip stitch. 4, and 5, and we're stepping up our step up right there. Okay, so that's the second of those 3 rows. Okay, so the third row is really kind of nice and easy because you're just going to go across. I was counting those beads out for you down the side so you could see that this one we have 6. 1, 2, 3, and that goes through that center bead, that single bead that we added over the gap, and then 3 up this side. So those 3 rows, rows 5, 6 and 7, are what you would repeat as many times as you like to get the star the size that you want. It does get a little bit much if you go kind of above 2 inches because it's just a difficult thing to work with. If you're going to go bigger than 2 inches, I say get a bigger purl and step up your sizes. You always want to be starting, you know, with a number of beads that you can divide by 5, so you get your 5 points. But I would go for a bigger purl to make a bigger star. This one does for about 2 inches. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work rows 5 and 6 again, and then I'll come back and show you, because I'm only going to make this a tiny star, so then I'll come back and show you the joining row. Okay, so 2 more rows, I'll come back and show you. Okay, so I finished that row, and then I worked a row 5 and a row 6, and you can see this is what we've got. It's a little puffy star. You can see the little puff going on there. And if you don't have that, just what you want to do is just push your nail up in the center of your little petal there. You want that to stand up. You can see how I've got these little bumps going on. Okay, that gives us the puffiness of our star. All right, so now you're going to do this on the other side, exactly like this. And then this is the joining row that we'll do. I'm going to do this right now, so let me show you. A drop into the point, and then I'm working in a nice metallic. Give us a bit of shine. And this is just your row 7. So you're going to add 1 at each side of that single bead. And the reason why we end there is look how nice that it sits. Those 2 points, the 2 beads at the point at the center here are leaning into each other, and that makes a nice finish rather than any other row would have, either 5, 6 or 7. The 7 row is the best one to finish on. Okay, so that's all you're going to do all the way around. And then once this is all complete, drop into point. It's easy to get carried away and just put your 2 in the point, because you're so used to doing it by this stage. I've done it numerous times and had to take it back. Okay, so you work that round, and then on the other side, working into those purple beads, you're going to work exactly the same. So you're going to start it off again at row 1 and put your increases in. Make sure that your double goes right over these doubles. So when you start this row, you must have your double bead right where this one is on the point. Otherwise they won't join. Okay, your point will be sticking out this way. It'll be in there, and we want it up here. So that's the thing to watch for. You want to be in this bead right before that join. Okay, so work that. I'm going to finish this row off and work the back, and then I'm going to come back and show you the zipping of it. Okay, so here I am with the second side all beaded. You just want to make sure that this is puffy before you seal it, so make sure that you've got your little pop-ups. Sometimes I like to use this tool. Just gets me enough puff. Make sure all those are up. And then we're just going to zip to these beads. So we're going to zip to the joining row. So first off, we're going to go through our drop, and then the second bead on the point, and then just regular old peyote zipping. Pull it up. And the thing you've just got to be careful on is when you get down to the center of the point, because you've got your 1 bead on this side and you've got your 2 that are like leaning together on this side. So be careful as you're going in there and make sure you get through the correct beads. Pull it up and make sure you go through that one. If you get to the end and you're bead short, you'll know that you made a mistake. You'll know exactly where you missed it. Right there. Okay, so that's all there is to zipping up your star. And what I do when I'm finished, I'm all the way around, because these are tiny stars, I didn't want to do a beaded loop. I thought it looked too heavy. So I just made a loop with the file line. And I'm going to have a long thread left over here so I can use it. And what I did was I passed through my final drop. So if you imagine this is all zipped up and this is my final drop, I just went back through the drop to leave a loop long enough, and then I wove my thread in and my loop stays, and then it's a nice easy way to hang your star. It won't be seen too much. Anyway, I'm just gonna zip up one more side here, and then I'll show you the last little puffing measure that we can take. Oh, I've gone through the wrong one there. Coming out of your drop, you go through the purple side. See, even I can screw up, and I'm thinking about other things. Okay, so just zipping along here. Oh. And what you can do once you've zipped up, you can just push these points in, and you go around and you would do every single one so that you make sure that you get that nice puff on there. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so I'm going to finish zipping this up and I will show you it when I'm done. And I'll also, when I get back, I will be showing you how to create the double layer. So we're going to create our second layer, which could be done partial way, like this, or it can be done fully to go over the points and joined again over the sides. Okay, so that's when we come back. Okay, so there's the star all finished with its little loop. As I say, just looping back through your drop bead and then weave the thread in securely, and your loop is really nice. And well, you can see on here, you can't hardly see it, which is wonderful. These are awesome little stars that could be used to put up on your gifts. You know, when you're wrapping a gift, add one of these or make a nice little addition, something that extra special. Okay, now to work a two-layered star. We work exactly the same for the first one, except so we put in our 5 rows of peyote. But when we come to this row, we're not going to add 15s. We're going to put in a row of right angle weave in your complementary colour. So whatever colour you want for your top layer, these beads should be that colour. So we do that on each side, so I'll do it on this side now to show you. You start off by adding 3 delicas and coming back through the bead that you're coming out of. Step up through the first of those beads. And now we're going to add 2 beads per stitch. So 2 beads, we're going to go through the next delica, the grey delica, and we're going to go up through that vertical bead, the one that's got the hole coming up of that previous stitch. Then when we step up, go through 1 bead, go through the next bead, and we're going to go through the next bead on the grey. And we're just working around into the up beads of the grey. And right angle weave, if you're familiar with it, it rotates, so you're going clockwise, anti-clockwise, clockwise, anti-clockwise, all the way around. So on this one we're going counterclockwise, just 2 beads, counterclockwise through the vertical bead on that stitch, through, and we just have to step up through 1 bead here, add 2 more beads, now coming back through, and you can get your needle through that vertical bead. You can like speed up a little bit. Then you're going to step up through the top bead, the side bead, and the next grey. Caught on my thread burner then. Back through that vertical one and through the next grey. Back up. Add 2 delicas. Through the grey. Back through the black. Step up, down and through the next grey, add our 2, in through the grey, step up just through the 1, add our 2, back down and through. My thread burner is right in my way. Clunk. Now I've lost my needle. There we go. Okay. So just working all the way around. Go through, and the next one. 2 more beads. Come through. And step up. So we've done 9 beads now, so we only have 1 bead left. Now you can see here, this is the bead we've got to work in, but we've already got one at this side, a black one at this side, and a black one at this side. So all we need to do is add 1 to go on top. I'm going to add the bead, come down through this black one, back through the grey one, and then up through the black on this side to finish the stitch. So that's what you're looking at. And then we're going to step around this stitch and down. And then we're going to go back through into our grey beads. So now we're right in that row of grey where we would be when we did the first star. So now you can make your star. So you can make your base star like this. You want to make it a little bit bigger. You know, you might do 1 or 2 more repeats just to make it a bit bigger, because we're going to put a star on top and we want that to be a decent size too. Okay, so I'm going to work my grey star, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to work into these beads to work the top star, because it is a little bit different for these top ones. Okay, so we'll be back when I've got a grey star. Okay, so here we are with a star made, ready to do a second layer. I went a little bit gothic with this because I had these little tiny spikes. So this one's just for me, my gothic roots. Okay, adding thread for this, there's a really easy way to do it, because otherwise it's a little bit finicky. Just push your thread going through by the purl on one side and push your needle through. You want it to come out around the black. So this way you've got a tail thread for one side and your working thread for the other. Presto. Much better than trying to weave a thread into this. And we're coming through this bead here, you want to be exiting this bead. See how there's two there that are right in the center of this, between the points? We want to be coming in this one. Okay? You see my threads exiting that bead right there. You see this right there? Okay, and we're going to offset our points on this one so that we can get it to look like this. All right, so that's why we're going to put our two beads right here. To create that point. And then you would do the one bead next. So it's just that row that you're working like you do on the basic star, where you're alternating one then two beads. The one bead needs to be sitting on the point for this one to do this. Now, if you're going to do a stacked star, you would want the two beads to be here. So that's the difference when you're just offsetting, and you'll see that in the tutorial. Okay, but for this one, we're offsetting, so we're not stacking. And then you would just continue working two beads, one bead all the way around on this row, working into those right angle weave stitches. Points, you'll always get your thread caught on points. Okay. It's a little bit difficult to see at first, you know, particularly working in black here. And this bright spark did that. Okay. Those points are going to kill me today. All right. So two right on that center. Once you get this row done, it gets a lot easier. Dig in for our bead there. You want to make sure you've got your right number of stitches after this row, because it's very easy to miss a stitch. And it's easier to miss a stitch in black than it is in any other colour. But I decided to go gothic. Okay, we're almost there. Two more in this one. Digging for our bead here. And we got one in the last, and we're all the way around. Just got to move these beads out of the way so I can get through that one. And of course, at the end of the row, you're going to step up. So here I am stepping up through that first bead of that first pair. And you can tell, because it'll be a bit loose, you have to pull that tail thread back because we didn't anchor that. You can put a stopper bead on it if you like. Once you've got the first row done, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so here we are in the center, so we're adding two beads. And then we're working two stitches in between and then into the point. So just like you did for the other star, for this row, these two rows, just like for the basic star. You see, it's a lot easier as we're working around now. We can see what we're doing a bit better. Oh, second bead in. There we go. Into the first bead of the pair. There we go. Two beads into our pair. I swear if I have anything within a mile of my beading, I will get my thread caught around it. Okay, so then we've got 2 more. 1, 2 into the first bead of the pair. There's 1 bead. 2 beads into the first bead of the next pair. Two beads through the second of the pair. Make sure that they sit right, now the thread's not twisted. And then 1 bead. And the last bead. And here we're going to be stepping up, so I'm going to go through the 2 of those beads. You can see the step up right there. Okay, so the first 2 rows, just like when you make your base star. The next row is a little bit different. We're going to go immediately to doing our decrease. So we're going to put our 2 beads in the point. Then we're going to go 1 bead and through the next 2 so that we're skipping a stitch. You see this here? You can see I'm going through 2 beads to skip that center stitch. And then we have 1 bead into the point. Once that row is complete, you're just back to doing your regular beading. So you'll be on a row 6 here where you're adding the 1 over the gap, and then you'll continue on. And just do the repeats until your points are about up to the edge here. So just keep increasing till they're up to the edge. You can see, like on that, they're just going to peek over that little bit, and then we can add our final row. Okay, so keep working that way, and once you've done that and you've got it to the top, you're going to do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll come back and join them. Okay, so I'm now joining the second layers together. You can see here, and the only difference in that to the first star is that we have the 2 joining rows, and we'll just be sharing the points. So here you can see as I'm working around, just going to work my edging bead in. Trying to avoid all the points here. Okay, so just as you would do normally. And then here we are with our last bead up to the point, and that's where we just join the 2 layers together. And then just continue working around. Okay, so that's join those 2 layers together. You can, of course, not make this reach to the sides. You can just cut it off here and finish with your joining row on here. So I'm just put the drops in and I've kept it all the same. So you can do that, or you can do this. Lots of options with this pattern. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the stacked star. Okay, so this is the stacked star, and the difference that you're going to do here, when you're starting this, you're going to build it a little bit differently. You're going to start by working into the right angle weave, because you want to do the largest star first and then scale down. So you'll be working first into the right angle weave and working your star as large as you like, and then you're working into the last row of peyote on this side. This is the row of peyote on the other side of the bezel, and then this last star is worked into the right angle weave on this side. So that's all it is, and I've stacked these with all the points the same, but you could stack them with the points coming here alternating. You know, so this point would be here, this point would be here, so you can alternate it. Again, lots of variations. And when I'd done this, I decided that if I did another one, I could probably join this and make an ornament, as I did. And so I'm going to show you what we did with the ornament to make this into an ornament. You make 2 of them to start with, and then on one of them you work 3 rows of peyote stitch. And the thing with the peyote stitch, you'll see clearer in the tutorial, is that you've just got to watch that these beads, the first row of black is just worked normally, and you go through, when you come to the point, you just go through the drop. But on the second row, you see how the beads are sitting in front of the drop here, and then the black ones sit in front too. And that's important so that our joinings will match on each side. So that's what we're going to do now, is I'm going to show you the joinings. This is really simple, so I'm not showing you exactly how to do this. Follow the tutorial, you can see it right here, and now we'll go on straight on and do the joining, because that is a little bit different. So after your joining row, and you've worked 3 rows, your thread is coming out of the 3rd black bead down. So you've got to match this up for the joining, and basically you're going to lay your gold bead against the whites. So that top gold bead needs to be up against that 2nd white bead. So 1, 2 white beads, the 1st gold. And that way, when you've lined those up, you know that from this black you're going through this gold. Get my needle in here. It's tricky showing on camera. Okay. A little fiddly to hold while you're stitching this in, but once you've got that first stitch, it's quite simple because you can keep it open. As long as you've got that first start, you can just zip it and pull it in. So working down these beads, zipping one side to the other, and hopefully not getting caught on every point in the process, or getting your thread tangled. I tell you, I make every mistake there is. Okay, so you can see how we're zipping this. Now here's the top gold and the top black. That's how you know you've got it correct. When you've got this last gold connected to this last black, and we can zip that up, pull it together, and our next step is to go through our drop bead. I'm going to open this up again so you can see. Okay, so from this drop bead we're going to come back through the black. And we start weaving this side. You will know if you go wrong because it won't work out. So if you miss a stitch, you will know pretty soon. When you get to the point, you'll know, dang, I missed that. Okay, so here we go through the next gold. Trying to bead and show you at the same time is not as easy. It's just beading it. Okay, so here we go. You can see my zigzagging going on. Through. See here, black. To gold. To black. And on this one, because we're at this point, we're going to go through those 2 point beads in the valley there as we go. So it's kind of just like a normal stitch would be. Let's pull this in tightly, zipping that, and then you go through that second bead, that second black bead of the point. You see this here? So it fits all snugly and you get this nice drop point that points out, so it's standing off a bit. It's really quite nice. Okay, so that's how you're going to zip all the way around. Remembering those 2 beads on the 2 gold beads on the top get joined together, and on the lower one you're joining through this bead into the black gold drop black. Okay, hopefully that's clear enough. And once you've zipped that, I'll come back and show you what this one looks like, and then we'll put a tassel on it. Okay, so here we are all zipped up, and one of the things I like about these being hollow, you could actually make these into time capsules. So you could put a clipping of a newspaper the day you finished it, or a note, or something for posterity, so that when the beading breaks down, 50 or 100 years from now, there's a little message in there. If the planet still exists. It's not looking good right now. Okay, anyway, that's the vessel, our little ornament, and next we're going to add that tassel. You don't need to, but the vote on Facebook was add a tassel, so here we go. A little bit of talk about tassels. I have, my tassel company had sent me some samples that are shorter than the tassels I have in my store. This is actually the perfect length for the tassel. This one's a little bit long, but you could trim it down. The other thing with this tassel is this has got a little tube in it that the tassel is made around. And it makes it a bit wide for this project. So the way to adapt this tassel is if you pull it like this, you can see that there's a little tube in there. And very carefully, you want to remove that tube. You don't want to ruin your tassel, but you do want to get that tube out. So, and I say very carefully because we want that tassel to remain intact. Okay, and now you'll see the cording that was around it comes undone, and that's fine. We will live with that because we're going to take it and we're going to wrap it around, and so that this becomes a bit smaller of a tassel and it becomes just the right size for this project. Okay, then you take the end and tie it off. If you've got a friend to help you, that's a great time to use them. Okay. Okay, so that is your adapted tassel. Easy to do, but you've got to be careful. Okay, and then you can trim it down to whatever length you like. Okay, so now we have our tassel sized down. I've strung 20 beads alternating black and white, and I'm gonna just make them into a circle going through the first bead. And it's up to you whether you start with the black or you start with the white. You just know that whatever bead that you first strung, that you're coming out of, then you're going into the next one. So you'll be adding, coming out of the white, you add a black. Coming out of the black, you add a white. Just depends on how you string that first bead. And it doesn't really matter, we're just doing some striping, so it's not a big deal as to what you end with. And I just like to do this row before I put it onto the tassel, just because it's a lot easier to work off the tassel than on the tassel. This third row of peyote is always the pesky one. Okay, just about round. So of course we're going to have, stringing 20 beads means we'll have 10 up beads. And then step up at the end of the row. And now I'm going to slide this over the top of my tassel. Oh, doesn't want to go. Go on in there. There we go. And then just pull in my tail thread and my working thread just to snug him up. Okay, so now I can work, and we're going to keep that as the top, so I'm going to push him up as far as I can, and I'm going to work downwards. So here we go, working in white for this row. Doesn't matter if you work up or down, it's just going down. We're going to end with the gold, so we may as well just head in that direction right away. You don't want this to be too deep in the beads, you don't want too many rows, just because we're working with a small object, and if you do it too deep you'll throw the proportion all the way off. I think that's the biggest issue I see when people go in and make changes on things, is that they don't consider proportion. I was fortunate, I went to art school and proportion was a huge thing we had to learn, so my proportion is usually pretty good, and that's probably why it offends me when I see things that are out of proportion. Okay, I'm just going to work this row and then I'll work the gold row to show you. I am going to put some drops in so that this really matches our little ornament. My tail thread. Put my tail thread out of the way. There we go. Okay, almost all the way around. Last bead and our step up. Okay, now because you can see that this this could possibly come off, it's still pretty tight, but just to make sure it doesn't drop off, I'm going to actually size down my beads and go to working in a size 15 seed bead right here. So in the same gold, I'm just going to work a row of the 15s. my tail thread out of the way again. This will just ensure that my beads just don't fall off, because we wouldn't want that to happen. I have visions of the things with tassels being battered at by, you know, little friendly kittens, and some of them not surviving. Oh, we need to make it kitten proof. Okay, so now we've got that done. If you had a larger tassel perchance and you just wanted to use that and you had to put more beads on or less beads on than the 20, you won't be able to do this next bit. So I would just finish off with another row of the gold 15s, because you need to be able to divide it by 5. And that's because we're going to add drops. So I'm going to alternate a drop and then a 15. A drop, and a 15. This is just so it ties in with all the little gold drops we have on the ornament. So here we go with another drop. And a 15. Another drop. Here drops. And a 15. Then our 5th and final drop. And our last 15. And as I've got a lot of thread here, I'm going to continue with this thread, and I'm just going to put my tail thread down so that I can work that in and trim it later. I'm just going to scoot up, working through each row so that I can come out the other end. Okay, we don't want this to be too deep, so make sure it's up fairly close to the top. We don't want too many rows. So here I'm just going to work a few more rows of the black and white, and then we'll come back and close up the top of the tassel. Okay, so here I am, and I've got my beads right to the top of the tassel, and I'm ready to close in. So here I've actually done about 12 rows of the black and whites. So that's about what you want. If you're missing a row or got an extra row, that doesn't matter too much. It's really, you want to be around that. It's not a science on this one. It's your preference. Okay, now I'm going to close this up by using my golds, and I'm going to reduce my 10 beads down to 5. So add a gold, go through 2. A gold, go through 2. Gold and through 2, gold through 2, gold through 2, and step up. Now we're going to just work a row of gold into those, just 1 bead per stitch. So it's kind of close it up nicely. And step up. And I'm going to work another row. Now that's not going to lay in, it's going to actually stand up and make it easier for us to add the tassel onto the ornament, do the attachment. And step up. Okay, so you can see how those are standing up. That's going to make life a lot easier when we're attaching to our ornament. So to attach our tassel to our ornament, What we're going to do is we're going to utilize one more of our 8mm beads. String that on. We're going to add 3 of our gold delicas, and I came out with a nifty way to do this so it's really easy to attach. You're going to go up through the point. See where the hole is on this point of the star? Just going to go through there, and you're going to come through the next point, the same place. So the thread's going to sit underneath on the star and not be seen, and it makes life really easy. Okay, let's get my end there. Then we're going to add 3 more of our delicas. Come back down the purl. If I can find it, there we go. Back down through the purl. And then we're going to go through the next 2 beads. So that one we came out of, we're going through the next one and then the next one. I'm going to go back up our purl. Making sure you don't come through any of the delicas. We're going to add 3 more of our gold delicas. I'm going to go up through the next point on the star. And down the next one. There we go. Then we're adding 3 more of our delicas. Back down the purl. Make sure we haven't got these all entangled here. Here we go. Back down the purl. And that's 4 of our attachments. And make sure you get your thread on the right side of your tassel. So you're going to go through, you see the thread is coming out from this bead. We want to go through the next one. And the next one. Then back up our purl. And get the hole again. There we go. And our last 3 delicas and through that final point. And so you can see this is going to hang quite nicely on there. You can see how it looks from this side. It's kind of a little star in a star. And then you can work your thread in, and I probably will cut off about 1 inch, 1.5 inches of this tassel just so it's in proportion. It's up to you whether you do that or not. It's all personal preference. I've woven a thread in securely, and I've got it exiting the same way that we did for the tassel through one of the points. And then I've strung 3 of my gold delicas, a fire polish, 4mm fire polish, it could be a pearl if you want, and then 1 more delica. And I've gone back through the fire polish and through the 3 delicas and back through the point that we came from. Now I'm going to go through the next point, just like we did with the tassel. And I'm going to add 3 more of the delicas. I'm going to go up through the fire polish and through the top delica. Back down through the fire polish and through those last 3 fire polish and back through the point of the star. Move around, come up through the next point, and you've probably gathered I'm going to do exactly the same thing. 3 of my gold delicas, back up through the fire polish, through the delica on top, back through the fire polish and the last 3 delicas and back through the point. Really nice and easy. Making life very easy for ourselves here. Through the next point and exactly the same thing. 3 of our gold delicas up through our fire polish. You might need to switch down to a finer needle when we've got, you know, all those threads in there. Through the delica on top, back down the fire polish, back down our 3 delicas and through our point, come through our last point, add our 3 delicas and up through the fire polish, our last connection. Through the delica on top and back down the fire polish. Through our last added 3 delicas. And now we can weave our thread in. And that leaves us with a nice little place to add our thread. So with a hanging thread, you could just put your hanging thread through. Just like that, and you've got that almost invisible hanging thread. Okay, if you want to put a bead loop on, you can, but there's really no need. I think it's kind of nice just to finish it like that. Okay, so there you go. That's your stacked star ornament. I hope you enjoy making all my stars and my star ornament, and you'll check out some more of my tutorials with video classes.